day. This is Doc. Thank you for joining us again for Adventures in Africa with Doc. I really enjoy these podcasts, and I hope you folks that are out there in the audience are also enjoying them. Please continue to send us feedback now and again of what you're wanting to hear more about and any suggestions that you have for us. We're publishing these at least every week or two, and you can find them on YouTube or other places that you check for your podcasts. Today, we're blessed to have a person who's recently been to South Africa, Jei, and I want her to introduce herself to you and just tell a little bit about who she is and what her experience has been. So, thank you, Jei. Tell us who you are and what's going on.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction, Doc. My name is Jay. I am a member of Hilltop Church in Waukee, Iowa. Recently, my church took 15 people, and we went to South Africa to see Kramer and help out with some outreaches. It was such a phenomenal experience. I was excited to come on and talk with Doc about everything that we did there.
Before we get into Africa, tell us a little more about you.
Well, I am 29. I had my birthday the day we flew out for South Africa.
Oh, wow.
I'm a mom to 3 young daughters, and I'm actually legally blind. So when I heard about this trip, I was so excited specifically for the baby house and the optical outreach, as those are 2 things that are very close to my heart.
Oh,
and I can promise
yes.
that they did not let down. I had such a good time.
So how did you find the optical outreaches? How was that for you?
You know, going into it, I expected it to be, a pretty similar optical experience to what I have, here with my eyes. Although, I was prepared for it to be more of a pop-up than an actual, clinic. But going into it, versus what I actually experienced, I was unprepared for how faith-focused it was. Every single child that I got to talk to, and my role in the optical clinic was to actually help them find their prescription.
Mhm.
We had people outside who were doing the line and, helping people if they needed to come in or not. And then once they came in, I was one of the people they sat with, and I tested them to see, where they would fall. But every single person that I spoke to, we had such a good connection, and we prayed so hard. I felt so moved because every single person I prayed with, like, they were crying, I was crying. It was such a faith-filled experience. The glasses were almost, secondary. Like, it was so great and phenomenal that they were getting them and they were able to see, and that made such a great impact on their lives. But, like, the way we felt God move when we were speaking, and I was learning about them and they were learning about me, the connection was just phenomenal.
That makes my heart so happy to hear that, Jay. You really got it. It's really the spiritual side. That's why we give out glasses, is to really connect with people.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's
No, I mean, we got the
amazing.
kids their glasses, absolutely, but it was the prayer and the movement and the talking, and so many of them, it ended with hugs, and they came in so heavy, but by the time they were done and they were moving on to the station to actually get the glasses, they were so much lighter and, just talking to everybody, and it was amazing to see such a transformation in such a small period of time.
Well, the baby shower was apparently another one of your favorites. Tell me about that.
It was. I have such a heart for kids. And it's so impactful to go there and hear the stories about, how they find those kids, the hardships that they have trying to place the kids, how their operation is impacted by the government, how it's impacted by Blessman International, how it's impacted by the community, and the challenges that they face. It's just, it really stops you in your tracks because, it's children. Of course, everybody's going to get emotional over it. But then when we got in and we actually had a chance to love on those babies, to, see them come to life when they get that human interaction, to be able to hold them. Several of them were falling asleep as soon as we were playing with them. Like, they were just tuckered out. They were playing so hard. We got to, help them have their snack time. Like, it was just all around a good time.
It is. It's another one of my favorites as well. I think the women appreciate it more than the guys, but when the guys go there, they're the same. They just
Yeah.
love to have those little babies fall asleep on their chest. If you remember some of the stories that Sandra was telling you about, where they find the babies, and could you share some of that with our viewers as well?
Yeah, of
Because
course.
they
She was
haven't had
telling
the
us,
experience.
yeah, she was telling us about, there was a baby that they'd found in the trash can and,
Hmm.
just like literally discarded. But I think the most impactful story she told us about was a little girl with autism. And, even in the States, it's harder to place kids who have a disability or who have special needs or things like that. But it's magnified there, especially because their baby houses can only house kids until they're 2. And, because of her special needs, she wasn't able to get with a family because they were trying to, keep her in South Africa. But
Mm-hmm.
they couldn't find anybody who wanted her. So, they got permission to keep her until she was, I think she's 4 now, I believe they
Mm.
said. And they did finally get permission for her to go to a family in the States that, had been on standby and had wanted her, but just with the prioritization being to keep them in South Africa, the poor baby, just had to stay there for a while. But I believe by now or the beginning of next month, she should be on her way to her new home. And it's,
Oh,
it was such a joy for us to hear. But
there are so many thousands of families in America that would love to adopt one of those babies.
mm-hmm.
And I keep praying that the process will get easier because, I get a really good feeling about the quality of care those babies get. I've
Yeah,
visited orphanages all over the world, and some of them are incredibly sad.
yeah,
It's just an awful place. But Sandra, she doesn't have enough staff, and she obviously doesn't have enough money. But those
mm-hmm.
kids are well cared for. Uh,
Absolutely.
and one of the things they need is people just to love on those kids. And so when we take you as Americans to visit there, it's not just for you to experience and get to see the babies and what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
You're really doing a service of loving on those children. They
Yeah.
need eye contact, they need cuddling, and it's such a blessing for the babies for you to have visited there. And I wish we could go even more often.
You
Uh,
and me both, Doc.
yeah, so it's good for them. It's been a place we've supported for many many years. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I was particularly excited about it because we've been feeding kids for about 17 years, and we started out feeding children age 5 to 17, and that's kind of a cool thing. But then, as a physician, I really learned that the most important time of a child's life is the first 1,000 days. And
Mm-hmm.
so we started working in preschools and feeding children age 2 to 5. And that's a huge blessing, and it's working well. And we have thousands of them. But the baby shelter gives us some babies that are age 0 to 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's so important. And
Mm-hmm.
so it added to what we've been doing. Well, tell us some more. What other things did you really experience and like, and what did you see your fellow team members experiencing? And one of the things I always hear is you make new friends, American friends, and you really bond with the people you travel with. But
Yeah.
uh, what has been your experience? Just tell us some more.
I think that relationship building that you're talking about is a very key part. I'm newer to Hilltop. I've been there 2 years, so I was able to connect a lot with the people from my church that went. But even when I was there and connecting with your staff, relationships were built there. They're all incredible, and it was so amazing to be able to work with them. But then even just at Del Kramer and the folks that work there, and I think we went to Del Kramer about 3 or 4 times, and so I saw a lot of the same kids while I was there, and getting to talk to them on Wednesday and then see them again on Friday. I was able to ask them, like, how was yesterday? What were you doing? And like they remembered me, and we had our running jokes and whatnot. So even in such a short time frame, like you are able to build pretty good connections, especially with the kids. Like they're always so excited to see you and play with you and talk to you. And as a mom of 3 young kids myself, I was able to show them, pictures of my girls when they were the same age and things like that. So it was just a really great way to connect with them.
For our viewers, Del Kramer was my wife's father. It's absolutely our pilot program. It was one of the first things we did in South Africa, and it's still one of the things I really feel the best about. There are about 250 children that get cared for there. My
Mm-hmm.
wife and I have literally watched a whole generation grow up. What other things, especially I'd like to hear your experience of visiting an African church, because it's a little different than visiting Hilltop.
Yes, yes. So in Des Moines, I grew up in an AME church, which is African Methodist Episcopal. So when I was in South Africa and we got to go to the church that my church actually helped build, which was really, profound in itself.
I love that
Um,
story.
yeah, the energy there, it just reminded me so much of the church that I grew up in. And it was like there was never a dull moment. They start the service dancing, and then, the American team, we sat down because we're like, once worship's done, we usually sit down. And then they're like, okay, well, now we're going to go into a different type of worship. And we stand back up and we do a couple more songs. And then the team would sit down and they're like, okay, well, now we're going to do 5 Dancing for Jesus songs. And then everybody would get back up again. And it's amazing to witness the way that they love the Lord, the way that they interact, and the way that they display their faith. Energetic would have to be, the word that I'm going to use to describe it best, because it's just, you can feel it from before you even step foot in the church until long after you've left. That energy just stays with you.
Those young people just absolutely love church. And one of the really cool things for me is those kids are followers of Christ. They don't just come and sing and dance and have a party.
Mm-hmm.
They The pastor is really guiding them through the Bible, and they know the Lord. One thing I wanted to hear from you uh, is a lot of people that I encourage to come to Africa, they think, oh, that would be wonderful, but there's no way that I can afford it. So,
Mm-hmm.
how were you able to make this happen financially? And
Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a single mother to 3 kids. I obviously don't have a lot in extra income, so I was a little nervous about it, but I prayed about it, and you know what? I got out there and I fundraised. I posted it on my Facebook. I talked about it to everybody I encountered. And I'm like, hey, I'm going on a missions trip. This is some of the stuff I'm going to, be able to do. And they're like, that's really great. And I'm like, hey, well, there's opportunity for you to help out.
yes, I always tell people if you're called by God to come, God will provide the money. And I'm particularly thankful that you came as an African American. My children that we work with in Africa, they get to thinking that all the people in America are white, because the majority of folks that come on mission teams with us are Caucasian, and they
I
get.
did experience that. I got
I
a
was
lot
going
of
to say they
questions.
get excited when they see, wow, you have skin just like ours.
Yeah, yeah. I was asked quite a few times where I was from, and I would say the United States, and they're like, are you sure? I probably got the question, are you sure? Every single day that we went out to an outreach.
Yeah, and I know they appreciated you coming and sharing with them. Other things that were really impactful for you. One of the things I always enjoy when I'm there, and I'm sorry I was not there when you guys were there, but my wife and I, one of our favorite things is sitting around the African campfire. At the end of
Mm-hmm.
the day, we like to have teams come in and we sit around the campfire and we just share what God's doing in people's hearts. And the stories that come out around that campfire are just so impactful to us.
Yeah.
And what was your experience with that?
The lodge has such a beautiful setup, and while we weren't able to make it out around the outdoor fire every single night, the nights that we did get out there, it was so nice. We had the big fire going. Everybody was telling stories from their days. There was a couple of days where like the men in our team were doing one thing while the women were doing something else. So to come back together and hear about, how we saw the Lord move that day was very impactful. But personally, one of my favorite times was when we were all gathered around the big table eating dinner.
Hmm.
That's a lot of times when we first got into all of our stories, because we just couldn't wait for the fire, which we did after dinner. So, having everybody around the huge table while we're all, sharing a meal and talking about our day, that was honestly, in recap terms, one of my favorite parts.
Well, anything else you want to share with our viewers before we close?
I will say there was one other outreach we did, and it ended up being just the women who were at this one, but it was the shoe outreach we found
Yeah.
particularly impactful as a group. That was one of those fire story nights where everybody was in tears. Um, so the shoe outreach was, we went to a school, and because our team was so large, we were able to actually help 100 of the most impoverished kids at that school. And we took their old shoes and socks and we washed their feet. We prayed over them. We were able to give them new socks and new shoes, and then, send them on their way. But each kid that we sat down with, we prayed over them, we talked to them, we learned about them, and it was just so heartbreaking to see the condition that their shoes and socks were in, knowing that, they walk to and from school every day.
Yeah.
These are hand-me-down shoes that they got from siblings or cousins or somebody else in the community. Like, these were not new when they came to them, and they would continue to get passed down if, Blessman International didn't intervene and give them the new shoes. And so for us to have that moment and sit down and connect with them in that way was just so phenomenal and impactful. And I would say those are easily my top 3 favorite outreaches that we did while we were there.
That's great. Yeah, we stole that idea from Jesus.
Yeah, yeah. He's a smart man.
Yeah, he was or is. Um, Being female, I would think you probably related pretty well to our girls' empowerment program too. Can you
hmm
share a little bit with our viewers what is our girls' empowerment program and what kind of impact did you see happening there?
One of the things that we did do was hand out the feminine hygiene kits, but it was so nice being able to talk to all of the girls and be there while they're learning such fundamental things about themselves, their body, their experience, what to expect, what they've been through. And to be able to pass out those kits to allow them to continue to come to school and not, be hindered by things that they can't control, and just to see how happy they are to have those additional options now. Like, it seems like something so small that in the States we tend to take for granted, but over there you can see that it's truly life-changing.
It is life changing, and the thing that still amazes me is my wife and I were missionaries in South Africa for about 10 years before we even knew that there was such a need
Mm-hmm.
because menstruation is kind of a taboo topic and people don't talk about it.
Yeah.
And so these poor young girls were suffering and they couldn't come to school because they didn't have the products they needed. And they weren't letting other people know, especially people that could help them.
Yeah.
And once we learned that it was going on, it was like, oh, there's a fairly easy solution to this. And we got women all over America sewing these kits, and now we've refined that program, and I think it's very exciting to me. We have women in America sew a beautiful cloth purse, and
Mm-hmm.
then we ship that or take that over to Africa. And when the women sew the purse in America, we ask them to put $20 in it, and then we use that money to get the purses to Africa. But more importantly, some of that money is used to pay African ladies to sew the menstrual kits. Well, I really appreciate you going to Africa, taking time to raise all the money you needed, and sharing with our people that that can be done. It's not easy, but anybody can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we hope that we'll see you back in Africa a few times,
Yeah,
and hopefully I'll see you around High V because I love coming out and meeting with your folks there.
absolutely.
Well, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and I just thank God that our paths have crossed.
Yeah, thank you.